Budgeting, quite an interesting topic, and I think a word that will evoke many different emotions in a lot of us. But nevertheless, welcome to today's video. If you are new to the workforce or you've just not keeping a budget, you don't know how to keep a budget, this is new to you, this is definitely the video for you. And we will be taking a look at some of the amazing technology that is out there to assist us in this. It will be doing most of the heavy lifting. You'll really only be able to, or you only have to do the initial input. And from there on, we simply start tracking. So that is the great part of it. I'll try and keep it as basic as possible, not to complicate the whole thing. But it is really not that complicated. That's the good news I have for you. So what I have on my screen now is the actual app you'll be using. And good news, it is free to use, and it is an app that has been created by a trustworthy company, Old Mutual. So it is one of their services, but it is free, like I said. So the app's name is Vault 22. So you can see it on my screen right now. I'm just going to log out so I can actually show you what the initial screen would look like. This is what it is. It formerly was known as 22/7, but it is now renamed to Vault 22. So you can simply sign up, you can create an account, or if you have an existing account, you can simply log in. I actually do have, yeah. Let me just do this part. Okay. And then once you have an account and you've signed in, it will take you to this dashboard or homepage, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, just to run through some of the most important features of this app. Definitely the dashboard does give you a nice overview. It has a few nudges that you can see here on the front. That's what they're called. It also gives you a financial fitness level so that they calculate using their own metrics, whatever they are. And if we scroll down, you'll see your money in versus money out, your net worth, and then your top 5 merchants. So that's just a few of the nudges that you can see on the front face. Then, like I said, there is financial fitness, which also gives you some insight on your financial fitness. It's pretty much as simple as that. Then we have all our accounts. So this is where you will link your bank account, and that's what really makes this app so valuable is the fact that it links to your bank account and more than one bank account. Yes, because there is quite a few good apps out there these days with Discovery Bank, and I know FNB and some of the other bank apps do have a budgeting feature on them. The only problem I've found from those are the moment you have more than one bank account, you really can't keep to your budget because if you got some of your money in the one account, some of your money in the other account, they don't speak to each other and you can't really track your expenses that well. So this is awesome for a household. If you want to add all the households bank cards and credit cards onto this app, you can do that. And you can also, if it's for you as an individual, you can put that on too. So you'll come here, you can update your accounts so that the most updated data is on here. If you click that, it will start updating that. And here you can click on the plus to add an account, add something you have or own. So this would be a nice feature like for myself, where I'm renting a property at the moment and I had to put down a deposit. I can't really add that deposit account to this because obviously it's not my bank account. But what I can do is I can actually add a manual amount that states whatever the deposit amount was. Let's say 10,000 Rand or 5,000 Rand. You can put that on manually and you can import some statements. I've never tried that feature, but linking the account is probably the one most of you will use. And yeah, once you've done that, you can add a few more. You can add many different ones. You can add an easy equities account, which is what makes this once again so valuable. Is that you can really see what your net worth is in terms of investments, in terms of deposits, in terms of bank accounts, and the whole lot. So then you'll see here on the screen there's a rewards tab as well. So depending on what bank you're with, you obviously get reward points for that, and it will actually convert your reward points into value, into money. You can see there is a R in front of my money account, so it does give you a rand amount for that. Then you'll set up your initially when you sign up and you create an account, the app will prompt you. It will ask you to create a budget, and it will take you through the process. It is quite straightforward and simple, and it will give you pretty much what you'll see on my screen now, just maybe in a slightly different format, where you then input your amounts as to your expected expenses, your budget, basically, and that's what it's going to start tracking your actual expenses against. So currently, you can see my current month, and the nice thing about this is you can also set the beginning date of the month to a different date than the first, because like myself, I get paid on the 25th of each month. And sometimes when the 25th is on a weekend, it will be a bit earlier. And then all your debit orders start going off. You need to pay rent, you need to pay electricity, and all your expenses follow. So I don't like starting my month on the first because it's going to give you a skewed view of your expenses because you'll see your expenses, let's say up until the 28th, like only being 10,000 Rand. And you're like, oh, well, I've got 10,000 Rand left. I've only spent 10,000 Rand. And then all those debit orders start going off and you have to pay rent. And all of a sudden you're in the red for 2,000. So what I like to do is I like to start it at kind of when I get paid, that's when I want my budget to start. Then in that first week of my pay, I'll start paying all my debit orders and I'll pay for my rent. And then I really only have left what I have to spend, if that makes sense. So on my budgeting app, I'll be able to see what I actually have left for the month to spend and not just left for the month that still needs to be paid in terms of rent and debit orders and so on. So that's quite a nice feature that you can add in. And then it gives you your budget, your current budget versus your actual expenses, and it makes use of colors to differentiate between like your day-to-day expenses, which is pretty much like groceries, going to the barber, putting in fuel, buying cat food, dog food, whatever, like your day-to-day normal expenses that you'll incur. Then your recurring expenses are obviously like your rent would be a recurring expense. Your bank, if you have a fixed bank fee, that will be a recurring expense. If you have subscriptions or membership fees, all of those things will be recurring. And then your income would obviously be whatever you earn, which most people will be one single salary or maybe an additional source of income if you have a side hustle. So what's nice is it gives you kind of a roll-up view, which is what you see here with your total expenses incurred versus your budget. And once you click on that, you can actually see the drop down of all those expenses. So you have a circle diagram there or a pie chart, whatever you want to call it, with the percentage that you've actually utilized. So I've utilized 27% of my activities budget so far. And then it shows you what you spent so far, your budget, and then your average for whenever you've started using this app until now. And yeah, that's basically just a breakdown. So obviously each person will have slightly different categories. Most people will have groceries, fuel, like the big ones will be there, but some of these will be more unique to some of us. And you can also create your own category, which is quite nice. So it has quite a lot of pre-set up categories, but you can also create your own. Then there are some under recurring. You can see these will pretty much be straightforward in line with each other. This is 40/40. My rent will be always what I paid for my rent unless it goes up. So you can see that's why it's pretty much on the dot for my recurring expenses. Then the transaction tab, which will be when most of us spend most of our time on this app, is where it links, because it's linked to your bank account, it kind of sees the expenses that flow through your bank account and you start categorizing them. But the app also does a really, really good job in categorizing it itself because it kind of knows whenever you stop at BP or Shell, it's going to be petrol. Pick and Pay and Checkers, it's going to be groceries, right? So many of the things are pre-set up and it will only ask you to accept basically. But if, let's say you withdrew money at the till at Checkers, you will be able to change that category. You can say it was a cash withdrawal or uncategorized or whatever you want to make it. You can actually change that category. So it is possible, which is quite nice. So, for example, here I earned some interest on my Easy Equities account, and it categorized it as income interest, which is perfect. So I can just say I'm happy with that. Here I have bank charges and fees. That is a recurring expense, so I'm happy with that. And you can see there's quite a lot of these things. They've got my Shell, that obviously is fuel, so I can say I'm happy with that. It got this Hazendorf Golf driving range that I went to. I've never been there. This was the first time, so it doesn't even need a history of you being there to categorize it as sport and fitness. So, but like for myself, I don't really have a category called sport and fitness. I use activities rather, because whenever that's kind of how I categorized my outdoor expenses, being more as activities. So I can actually go and put that as activities, instead of, keeping it under sport and fitness. So that's just what you can do with the app and how to use it. And then a nice bonus for the people watching. In the description, I will add a PDF, or not a PDF, sorry, an Excel document that will be the template that you can download and that you can start using with this app. So the nice thing, for me as an accountant, well, a chartered accountant in training, is I like to analyze numbers and I like to analyze my expenses and go into a bit more depth than what you can see on the app. So I'll go into that now. I just want to show you another cool feature on this app is the reports feature. So the reports feature is just almost like the dashboard. It kind of gives you an overview of your some of the fancy nudges that it got. It compares sometimes what people your age do versus what you do. So for example, I'll spend 100 Rand on entertainment, and this thing will say, based on your age group, people tend to spend 200 Rand on entertainment. You are 50% less than your peers, and well done for that. Kind of just gives you some nice insights. So here it says saved of your income. You put away 25% of your income towards saving, investments, and paying down your debt, which is quite a nice insight. 25% is quite a chunk. I'm also quite impressed with that. And it does give you some other insights. Your average daily spend on day-to-day and exceptions, $250 pretty much. So it gives you some nice insight as to, what you're doing and where your money goes. All right, going back to the actual Excel and going into a bit more depth with your budgeting. What you do is you go to your budgeting tab, right? And I'm just going to go to last month because this month obviously hasn't been on for that long. It's only the 4th. And I'll actually download this CSV file. So you go to your budget, you click on CSV, and it will actually download the file for you. So once that has been downloaded, you simply open it up, and you can open it up with the actual the Excel in the description, which would be the Vault 22 budget. It will be renamed, but it will be called Vault 22 budget. And then all you have to do is it's going to look something similar to this, your export from the Vault 22 app, and you can copy everything below the actual title, so the heading, spending group, category, amount. You copy everything below that, and you actually open up your 722 budget, and it will be empty. But once you start populating the figures, it will look something like this. So all you have to do is you paste the data underneath the spending group column. You just paste whatever you copied. So I'm going to paste that there, and you change whatever the current month is. So mine would be November in this case, because I've already got October there. So I'm just going to choose November. You can choose it from the drop down, and you can copy that and just paste it up to the last one, up to what, just next to every single category you got there. So once you've done that, it's going to filter through to the other pages. So you'll see there is a year-to-date, a monthly analysis, a combined sheet, which is where you're going to paste everything, and then an actual SFP, which we'll get to. So on the year-to-date view, this is what you'll see more or less. It might change slightly depending on your categories, but your format should update automatically. I've set some rules in place that it would be able to accommodate that. So you also got your roll up here. So this is high level, your income, day-to-day, recurring, and expenses for the year to date. So you can actually see what your actual was versus your budget, and it gives you a small variance there, and it gives you a total variance. And then it also gives you an average at the bottom. So you can see I'm a bit in the red, but just a disclaimer, these are fake numbers. I've just made them up for the purpose of the video. But you can see from these fake numbers, I'm in the red there. It's a negative variance. So you can also see here what your total income versus your total expenses are. And you can see I'm still saving money. I'm not in the red like from an account perspective, but I was planning on saving more than I actually did. That's what it comes down to. And you can see what your average income versus your average expenses are and your average saving, if you want to call it that, per month. So looking at this, it kind of just gives you same thing, but per category, so per expense type. So, your activities, I've been doing well. I'm quite under budget with that. Alcohol, quite under budget with that. Clothing, I didn't even budget for that. I've been spending too much on that. Same thing with gifts and groceries. So actually, this helps me as well for next year's budget. That I know now I need to put in something for clothing. I need to put in something for gifts. That's something that obviously is going to happen next year. I just didn't think about it in the beginning of this year, for example. Um, and you can see some medical expenses and whatever the case may be. So yeah, you can run through this and kind of spot, where you've been spending too much, where you can cut a little, where you can be a bit more forgiving, whatever the case may be. And it will give you a residual, which is pretty much what your savings are, after all your expenses. So this formula just basically does a income less expenses, and that's what it does. And the same thing for the other formulas that do the amount and the budgeted and the difference. And then this is just a control total. So this should be null, which obviously I'm glad it is because it shows my formulas are working. So that's just something to check yourself, as you update your budget that these numbers are null, then everything is in order. And these residual amounts, you'll see the net amount here, this 7,600 will tie up to the 7,600 here. Then on the monthly analysis, pretty much the same view, but on a month-to-month basis. So you can see what you've spent in October versus November, and you can kind of gauge your variance as a percentage as well. So you can see I've been down 26 Rand, but that's about 11% I've been down, which is good. Same thing with eating out and groceries and whatever the case may be. There's some personal care, which is like going to the barber, whatever, and the whole host of income versus expenses. It also gives you a nice roll-up summary view of that with an average. And the reason I put the average here is when I compare, for example, November to October, I can see, my income is slightly below what I've earned in October. But it's not too bad. My average, is 17,800. In October I have 18. Here you can see for day to day, for example. Okay, I've spent 4,000 versus 5,000 in October versus a 6,000 Rand average, which is a very, very good compared to the average. And you can kind of compare, like my recurring expenses, for example, is a bit high this month compared to my average. So it's just another way of comparing and seeing, whether you are spending a bit too much or you cutting too much or whatever the case may be. And you kind of get the same totals here, your total income, total expenses, average income, average expenses, and the host. So that would be it from a budget perspective. Then just an additional extra thing I have in my sheet, which I like to check, is my statement of financial position. So for the accountants out there, you probably know what this means. But for the non-accountants out there, this is just basically telling you what you own, what you own on a net basis. So all your income or all your assets or all your balances, you want to call it that, the things you own in money terms, less all the things that you owe, the bank and credit card, and all those things. So you can pretty much change it up as you wish. But I have my investments here, Easy Equities, once again, these are fake amounts, my Discovery Bank savings account, and my rent deposit, for example. And then you have your bank accounts. So I have my current account, my points, my cash, and other receivables. So other receivables might be something like a friend owes you some money, or you bought something for your father on Takealot, he's just going to refund that to you, whatever the case may be. That you can all put in here. You can factor that in. And it's going to give you a total assets. And then you have liabilities, which are like provisions, So if your car's making this funny noise and you really need to take it into the mechanic sometime soon, you can actually start making a provision for that. So you can see what your actual value is in your bank account or your actual value of things that you own. Because technically you're going to spend that money like very soon. And if you make provision for that, it's not such a big shock at once, you know. You kind of you can see here I said increase by 500 Rand per month. So that means like every month I'm going to do this, I'm going to update this sheet. I'll just increase this 4,000 with 500 Rand. So I can see what my actual net worth is, if I call it that. My actual net worth is, even taking that into consideration. And then I like to keep a tracker here for myself. So it's basically just as I go through the month, or as I update my budget on a monthly basis and I do this sheet, I'll update whatever the value is. So you can see here at the bottom, like for today, I'll say October, or for October equals, and I'll actually type out that value, 73,207. And you type it out because obviously if you make it a formula, you say equal to that, it's going to automatically update every month, which you don't want. You actually want to see your money, you know, as it fluctuates. So the best thing would be, and what we're all aiming for, is to see that grow over time. So you want to see, you see, I started with 55 here and I've ended off with 73, for example. So you're going to want to see that growth over time. And it's encouraging to see that, and see your hard work and your budgeting is actually bearing some good fruit. And then here on the right, I have a liquid tab as well. So if I just open that formula, you can kind of see it's just all the liquid money that I can spend today if I wanted to, that I have. So that would be your savings accounts and you know, all your points and your cash and your actual day-to-day transaction account. That would be your liquid. And the reason I put that in there is just for peace of mind, in knowing that, you know, when emergencies happen, like let's say you get in a car accident, or you know, you rush to the hospital with something, with some type of emergency, and you need money to cover those expenses, you know, the car accident, or the actual medical expenses or whatever. You know what you have liquid, what you can actually spend today. Whereas, you know, if you don't have that, you have to like try and figure out, you know, it puts unnecessary stress on you. And it also, if you have a good emergency fund, a good amount in that emergency fund, it also prevents you from taking money out of your investments. Because as we know, like, investments fluctuate. Sometimes they're in the green, sometimes they're in the red. You don't want to sell something that's in the red when it can go into the green sometime soon. You're going to waste and you're going to lose out on quite a lot of money. So yeah, that's just the intention for this tab here. But that's about it, guys. I hope this video was fruitful and that you guys enjoy working with modern technology and the advances in budgeting that is available out there. And yeah.